The Bengal showdown is getting bigger and louder. Now it's become a direct Modi versus Mamata fight. The latest flashpoint is over the Gujarat model. BJP's Bengal chief today declared that the party would emulate the Gujarat growth model in West Bengal if they are voted to power. This was countered by the Trinamool, which called the Gujarat model a nightmare. Here's how this big political fight played out.
After Bihar, the poll wagon has entered Bengal. The battle for Bengal has begun. West Bengal BJP chief Dilip Ghosh stirred the pot by announcing that Bengal will be turned into Gujarat if his party is voted to power.
আমাদের ছেলেমেয়েরা আইএএস আইপিএস হতে পারে না বিমান বাবুরা বুদ্ধ বাবুরা আমাদেরকে এরকম করে দিয়ে গেছে ঝান্ডা বাহক করেছেন আর ডাক্তার ইঞ্জিনিয়ার প্রফেসর হবে না পরিযায়ী শ্রমিক হবে আর সে চাকরি পাবে গুজরাটে বাংলায় পাবে না তাই আমরা এটাকে গুজরাট বানাতে চাইছি দিদিমণি মাঝে মধ্যে বলেন গুজরাট বানাবার চেষ্টা হচ্ছে আমরা 100 বার চেষ্টা করব গুজরাটকে পশ্চিমবঙ্গে গুজরাট বানাবো আমাদের ছেলেরা এখানে চাকরি পাবে কাউকে গুজরাট যেতে হবে না
The Gujarat growth model for Bengal may well be the BJP's plank for the elections, where it has set a target of 200 seats. TMC lashed out at Ghosh for the Gujarat reference, saying it was a state better known for encounters against minorities. The chief minister charged the BJP with trying to disturb peace.
এখানে যত বড়ই ক্রিমিনাল হোক তাকে কোর্টে হাজির করতে হবে কিন্তু ওখানকার নিয়ম হচ্ছে ওরা এনকাউন্টারে মেরে দেয় সেই জন্য আমরা এটাকে গুজরাট করতে দিতে চাই না আমরা এটাকে বাংলায় রাখতে চাই
West Bengal Governor Jagdeep Dhankar, who has been having a running battle with Mamata, took another pot shot at her government.
Put a big round of applause.
They are artillery and infantry of politics. नंबर 1 ये खतरनाक बात है इस पर अंकुश तभी लगेगा जब सरकारी तंत्र और पुलिस और एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन नॉन पॉलिटिकल होंगे वो पब्लिक सर्वेंट की तरह काम करेंगे
Dilip Ghosh's remark using the Gujarat model analogy may have triggered a fresh war of words between the BJP and the Trinamool. However, the latter has now taken the attack directly at the BJP's doorstep, with Mamata Banerjee now accusing the BJP of importing outsiders to fan communal trouble in West Bengal. With camera person Probir Biswas, Indrajit reporting for India Today in Kolkata.
So if you were to compare the Gujarat growth statistics with those from West Bengal, does the BJP have a strong enough claim? Now, if you look at the per capita income of the state of Gujarat, and Gujarat is one of the most prosperous states in the country, it's almost double that of West Bengal. If you look at unemployment rates, for example, the unemployment rate in West Bengal is 10%, in Gujarat 4%. Literacy rates, according to the census of 2011, roughly similar. Gujarat slightly more educated. So can the BJP go convincingly to the voters of Gujarat, tell them that this is the Gujarat model that will be brought to West Bengal, and is this to the advantage of the BJP, or could it play to the local asmita, local pride, where they're saying they're trying the outsiders, the Bahari party here, which became a big issue in Bihar in 2015, not this time but in the last elections. For perspective and for this, joined on this broadcast representing the BJP, Nalin Kohli. For some reason, the Trinamool doesn't send its own spokespersons, but we do have a TMC supporter, Advocate Tausif Khan. Welcome. We have Rajat Sethi for a perspective of the thinking within the larger right fold. We have Shikha Mukherjee joining us as well. I want to go across first and foremost to Nalin Kohli. Why is it that you believe that the Gujarat model, if taken to West Bengal, holds the key to the problems of the state of West Bengal? Because there are many in West Bengal, especially those who are Trinamool supporters, who say, look at the culture, the history of West Bengal. we do not want the Gujarat model to be foisted on us. Nalin Kohli.
Actually, the Trinamool supporters say, look at the history of West Bengal and we don't want that. That is an answer if they go back to what Bengal was. The problem is that Bengal has become under the Trinamool Congress. I mean, Bengal at one time, and if you go back even to the freedom movement, this was the land of intellectuals. This was a land of literacy. This was a land of industrialization. If you go to the early 60s, this is a land which gave India thinkers, professionals across the spectrum. This was
every sense. And where have we come to? We've come to a place where today jihadi factories run there. People are coming from across the border. They are able to, have bomb factories there. They can come and do heinous crime here. I mean, violence has become a norm in West Bengal. Where is the Mahamati Manush? The Gujarat model, in a sense, is synonymous to the fact that development as a model of politics, Gujarat is the epitome of it. And you have to only look at all indices. Look at what Vibrant Gujarat did. Look at, I'll pick up, say, something as simple as roads. Some of the finest highways that ever came up in this country first were seen in Gujarat. Per capita income you've referred to, industrialization, the East, which Prime Minister Modi has been speaking since 2014. Development has been West. Industrialization has been on the West Coast, on the western part of India. The East is neglected. Now the governments that were in West Bengal, which is in the East, don't they owe an answer to the people of West Bengal that why is it that development couldn't come there? Industrialization couldn't take place? So I think the fact is about giving people a government that works for the land and the people to bring prosperity and take it as one of the most industrialized and developed places in the country.
Tausif Khan, Nalin Kohli refers to the roads, the industrialization, the development of Gujarat in comparison with that in West Bengal. He talks about better law and order, more prosperity, the square focus on development which could take West Bengal back to the days of Sonar Bangla, whereas if you look at contemporary Bengal, on various parameters, socio-economic parameters, it lags states like Gujarat. That's the reality.
You see, people of Bengal are capable enough to take the state of Bengal on the road of Sonar Bangla. It's just that the hurdles that BJP is throwing on this way must be stopped. They are talking about Gujarat model. We have seen Prime Minister spoke of it when he was contesting the election to become the Prime Minister. And we have seen the demonetization, what they promised and what it resulted into. 99.3% of the entire money. It is the RBI data which says that the money came back into the system and therefore demonetization was a failure. We have seen that the Gujarat model that Prime Minister is trying to implement across the country as a Prime Minister, what has happened to it, where we are in global hunger index, where we are in unemployment in our country, why the airports are being sold to the private sectors, and they have a plan to sell to the railways as well.
Now, some of your objections rather sound vague to me, Tausif Khan, because Nalin Kohli suggested specifics, roads, infrastructure, development, per capita, law and order, where Gujarat does better than West Bengal. Where is it that you believe West Bengal is better off than Gujarat? Cite statistics, cite data, cite sectors. Tell us, why do you believe the West Bengal model is better than the Gujarat model?
Then I would invite Nalin Kohli to come and visit Bengal, take the roads to rural areas, and you will see that, yes, roads are better. If he's talking about the various...
No, roads are better where? I'm sorry. Are you suggesting, Tausif, that you believe that roads in West Bengal are better than those in Gujarat? Is that what you're saying?
I am saying that there are hurdles, yes, no doubt, but those hurdles are put by the central government itself when they refuse to release funds to the state government. In terms of GST, there's a huge debt that state government fails to release. There are other money that state government needs to demands from the central government, and which is to the tune of more than 50,000 crore rupees, which the central does not release.
Okay, Nalin Kohli, Tausif Khan argues that if roads lag, it's because the central government holds back funds. You are the impediment to the growth of Bengal and the return of Sonar Bangla.
Absolutely to the contrary. In fact, Rahul, if you look at today's newspapers, there's an article that the funds released for various developmental schemes, there is no account in Bengal. They have probably used it for some other purpose. I mean, so therefore, that is the reality. The second part is, how is it that central government schemes are not implemented in Bengal? Why does Bengal choose not to do things like, say, Ayushman Bharat and other schemes? Are they not meant for Indian citizens? Are the citizens of Bengal not deserving to have the same benefits that other citizens in the country get? Tawseef Bhai said something which I agree with him fully. He said the people of Bengal are capable. Of course they are capable. They are very capable. The problem is the leadership of the Trinamool Congress which has shackled them because their priority is anything but development.
Rajat Sethi, is this smart strategy on the part of the BJP, or do you apprehend that this could be a double-edged sword? Because if you tell people in a state like West Bengal that we will turn your state into Gujarat, there is possibility that a sense of territorialism, a sense of parochialism, regionalism emerges, and it becomes what, you know, we saw the Bahari versus Bihari in 2015 in Bihar and West Bengal, and the BJP at that time had to deal with it, where people felt that they Bahar wali party, they're coming to Bihar. Could that same potentially happen in West Bengal? Is that a concern you have?
So, Rahul, a couple of points here. Bihar in 2015 was lost not because of Bahari versus Bihari. It was more around caste and caste equations. Number one. Number two, if you look at the broad general mood of the electorate, that has decisively shifted from a very identity-driven politics of Ma Mati Manush that was brought to the foray by Mamata Banerjee in 2008 Singur-related agitation. But that agitational mindset of the politicians in Bengal haven't yielded any developmental indices that the people long for, they are eagerly waiting for. That shift in the electorate, where they can hold the governments, the state governments responsible for lack of development, lack of economic opportunities, is, I think, what the BJP is banking upon. And there are examples for that. If you look at Tripura, which is also a largely Bengali-speaking population there, even they had 35 years of communist rule, and pretty much everybody used to say that people are satisfied with the communist rule. The communists, by the way, were inflicting huge amount of political violence on their opponents as well. So if you look at both these states, there are actually a lot of similarities. But Tripura chose to bring down a 35-year-old government of the communists. And I believe that the electorate of West Bengal is equally smart to think through which model is going to bring more dividends for them. And
Shikha Mukherjee, we saw in Bihar, there was visible anti-incumbency against the ruling coalition, but the opposition simply didn't have the structural and the caste might to be able to overcome what the NDA presented against them. Do you think that the ground is set, the stage is set for the BJP to come in, because after 10 years, a huge amount of anti-incumbency is built up against Trinamool, and more importantly, there is a daring challenger that's willing to fight a bloody and brutal battle if required to unseat the Trinamool Congress?
Two things here. One is that there is obviously an anti-incumbency happening in West Bengal. 10 years of one party in power obviously brings that about. The second thing is that is there a comparison with what has happened in Bihar? I would suggest that West Bengal's politics is slightly more complicated than Bihar. For two or three different reasons. One of them being that the consolidation of the opposition there is a consolidation of opposition. That consolidation is against as much the Trinamool as it is against the BJP. In other words, it's not a straight fight between one consolidation against the BJP and the BJP NDA fighting together. Therefore, the ground realities are somewhat different. Having said that, let me also say that the political violence in West Bengal has been chronic for the last 60 years. Having said that as well, let me also go back to the fact that the political violence is something that will happen regardless of what anybody says. That is because this is the culture, the political culture of the place.
No, but I'm sorry.
It's-
Can I counter argue that
Yes.
violence was the political culture during elections in Bihar as well, and then over a period of time it changed. So why do you take as a given that there will be political killings in the state of West Bengal? Why can it not be that you have a government, whichever party provides that government, which runs the state as it should, doesn't allow the mafia to run their guns and illicit liquor, alcohol, drugs, and actually runs the state the way it should be run? Why can't that whole violence of political killings then end? Shikha.
Well, Rahul, I would agree with you that the state, the ruling regime in a state is entirely responsible for not being able to control the violence. On the other hand, I would say that for the 2021 elections, I do not see that there will be a violence-less election in West Bengal. That is because on both sides, there is enough saber rattling, there is enough tension, and there is enough steam being built up within the political organizations to suggest that there will be violence.
Okay,
Let me
Nalin
put it to
Kohli,
you like-
Shikha argues.
Let me just finish this.
Okay.
Because I think it's important to note that on the one hand, the BJP leadership has repeatedly said that it will counter violence with violence, which is not the best way of suggesting that there will be no violence.
Okay, let Nalin Kohli respond to this. You're saying that political violence is an endemic part of the political system of West Bengal. It's been that way for 60 years. Plus, she counters to say, the BJP says we will counter violence with violence. And therefore, that's hardly the way to bring an end to this vicious cycle. Nalin Kohli.
No, I think, Rahul, there are two paths to this. The first is, as an advocate, if I may just remind, there is something called the right to self-defense. I mean, if our workers are being hacked, I mean, they're certainly in their right not to offer a flower. They are in their rights to take whatever steps they have to save their lives. But the BJP is not instigating any violence. I think that is also coming very clearly in this. That if there is violence done on it, any steps we need to take to protect ourselves.
This would. But we are not saying the culture of violence is clear. Today also somebody's been killed. Somebody related to the BJP. So please show me the list. Why don't we do? And it's an unfortunate way to do it. Something that I wouldn't like to do is, can we just pick up the death count of the BJP workers? Those associated
No,
with
but there the Trinamool says whoever dies, unfortunately, the BJP turns around and says, hey, hamara aadmi hai. Very often they dispute whether that guy is a BJP person. They think any killing that happens, you're making it seem as if it's a political killing.
Yeah, so therefore let me ask another thing. So does it make any sense to say that a person goes and hangs himself by the tree after being beaten up? And how is it that coincidentally that it all happens with the BJP people or those related to BJP? I mean, the argument has to be one of credibility. It can't be incredulous. It can't be ludicrous. It can't be out of the, literally an argument that makes no sense. It can't be from the theater of the absurd. So, I mean, that's as simple as that.
Tawseef Khan, Nalin's point is this, that you look at the recent instances, the BJP alleges a lot of the people being targeted are BJP karyakartas or linked to the BJP in some fashion, and that this is being done because it's the Trinamool goons on the ground who instigate this violence. Tawseef.
So Nalin Kohli is suggesting that the other political workers which belong to other parties, including Trinamool, are being killed by their own men only. I mean, this is so absurd. Let me tell you what is the root of the problem, where the violence emanates from. Just go and check the public speeches made by Dilip Ghosh, Bengal BJP. Every now and then he is holding a rally, and in public forum he is telling his BJP workers to go and beat up Trinamool workers. He is giving threats of violence. He is saying, I will beat you up, I will break your limbs, and I will send you to hospital. He says that when I come to power, we will kill you in encounter. And this is he is like a habitual offender, and there is no condemnation. No, I mean, neither the Home Minister nor the Prime Minister nor the Governor of Bengal is seen condemning the statements made by Dilip Ghosh. In fact, now Dilip Ghosh says that we will repeat the Gujarat model. So what is he suggesting? Where is he taking Bengal? Is he taking Bengal to a bloody path of violence. He complains that Trinamool indulges in violence, but on the contrary, he is himself giving these public speeches of threats and violence, and there is nobody to condemn him. There is nobody to show him the mirror, and yet people like Narendra Kohli, they come on TV and then they say, boss, it is only Trinamool workers who are violent. We are not violent at all. We are the followers of Gandhiji. But in fact, you are the followers of Nathuram Godse. The first violent person, the first terrorist which India saw was the Nathuram Godse, and you openly idolize him. You say that he is your idol. So what can we expect from BJP? As long as BJP are not put on leash, as long as BJP leaders do not watch what they speak, can we expect that Indian Bengal politics will become violence-free?
I don't know when you heard Nalin Kohli say that he's idolizing Nathuram Godse, but since it's a charge against him directly, I'll let him respond. Nalin, go on.
We don't idolize Nathuram Godse. This is a figment of their imagination. As I said,
no,
West
BJP
Bengal and
people
probably what BJP people do, sir. I'm speaking as the official spokesperson of the party. Some individual here and there has a point of view. I mean, I can also say that there are people. No, 1 minute, Tawfiq. 1 minute. Just let me tell this. If somebody goes out there and makes a statement that I support this brand of this thing which does violence, does that mean the whole party does? By that logic, be very careful, because there are people who misuse the name of Islam and go out there and become human bombs and kill other humans. So does that mean you will say that all Muslims are like that? Certainly not. It's not acceptable. So be careful of an argument you use. It is a self-defeating argument. That's why I'm saying it as a spokesperson. We don't idolize Nathuram Godse. He deserved to have been hung for killing Mahatma Gandhi. As simple as that. You are manufacturing this. And the second part is you wish us to condemn Dilip Ghosh for speaking, but you will not condemn those who killed the workers. Look at the hypocrisy. Taking a life deserves no condemnation. Somebody's speech is a big subject of condemnation.
Okay, Tausif, quick counter before I go across to Shikha and Rajat.
I can only laugh when Mr. Nalin Kohli says that one or two individual makes violent speeches. It is the BJP Bengal chief, a probable chief minister contender of BJP, and he is dismissing him as an individual. What can we expect? Is Mr. Kohli not siding with Mr. Dilip Ghosh?
Shikha, okay, go on.
Time and again, Trinamool leaders have condemned. We have heard Trinamool senior leaders saying that regardless of which party a worker belongs to, any killing, if it is a political killing, must be condemned and must stop.
Show me the action. Is anyone charge sheeted? Has anybody been convicted? On so many deaths that have happened of BJP workers, show me one charge sheet that has resulted in a trial and has resulted in a conviction.
Shikha, what does this shrill rhetoric that we're seeing on the Newstrack and that's been playing itself out in West Bengal suggest about the kind of campaign that we'll see between December and April, May when these elections happen? How will this be different from what Indian viewers, Indian voters have seen in Bihar and before that in multiple other elections? How is the West Bengal election different from everything else?
I think you're going to see a kind of, West Bengal elections have never before in the same way attracted national attention as it will this time. So what seems very shrill to an audience outside of West Bengal seems to be something that we are fairly accustomed to in election after election after election, because there is a fierce competitive politics which happens all the time, and during the elections, of course, it intensifies. Therefore, the whole nation is going to see the kind of intense fight that goes on inside West Bengal at these points of time. But what is going to be far more significant is that there will be not only a three-way fight between the BJP, the Trinamool, the Congress and the left, which seems to be putting together a coalition of sorts as both an anti-BJP, anti-Trinamool front. And then there will be the MIM, which is emerging as a new actor in West Bengal's politics, and especially in areas where there is a Muslim majority.
Do you think the OVC party will have some traction, Shikha, in West Bengal?
Oh, I would assume that they would certainly pick up votes. How much and how well they perform, it remains to be
Is that,
seen. And
Tausif,
this is what
a
happened.
nightmare scenario? Because the Trinamool takes the vote of the minority community, which especially in the districts neighboring Bangladesh is very substantial and significant to sway the results on multiple seats, very much for granted, virtually suggesting that they're obviously not going to go out and vote for the BJP. You're hoping they'll vote for you. But if what happens in Simanchal is repeated in West Bengal, then you have a real problem on your hands, Tausif.
No, it won't be much of a problem because it is remained to be seen how well people of Bengal has accepted. Because from the very initial days, people have rejected OIC type of politics. You know, one communal politics of BJP, an answer to that cannot be a communal politics of MIM. So that is why people of Bengal are in two minds. We have seen huge opposition to OIC's entry or talk of OIC's entry in Bengal. But yes, it is a reality, having seen what happened in Bihar, that he did manage to get 5 votes. That it would remain to be seen how he performs in Bengal, or about whether he really decides to make. But you must be, we are very clear on this, that there is a tremendous opposition. If there are support for MIM, then there is a tremendous opposition from Muslim community itself against OIC's entry.
Now, here's the point, Rajat Sethi, which will be an imponderable at this moment. Will voters in West Bengal see what's happened in Bihar, where the presence of the AIMIM prevented the RJD alliance from getting close to 120 and held the RJD back, helping the BJP in some ways with the JDU form the government, and that, therefore would that deter Muslim voters in West Bengal from going to the AIMM, or could it have the counter, that they just think that the Trinamool isn't advocating the concerns of the minority community strongly enough, and therefore they're willing to give the young, articulate Muslim icon Asaduddin Owaisi a shot? Rajat?
I've listened to some of the... Can you hear me?
I hear you well.
Yeah. So I have listened to some of the speeches that OSC has been making in Bihar, and he is trying to make certain very interesting points. Please understand that in West Bengal, Mamata Banerjee had been pretty much pandering to just one minority community, the Muslim community, and was banking upon that 35% vote percent that they bring across the state. Now 35, so her starting point was always a 35% vote share, which is a big lead to begin with. But at this stage, if she goes on status quo, practicing her soft communal agenda, if you remember, whenever you land, you used to land in Kolkata and come out of the Kolkata airport, there used to be a big 80 feet by 80 feet hoarding where Mamata Banerjee was in the pose of reading namaz. That was the pandering that she did, specifically targeted to the minority community. But in effect, she did not bring any kind of development, any kind of jobs, any kind of upliftment of the minority community, which is going to be tapped into by OSC. OSC very cleverly...
Is that your Brahmastra, Nalin Kohli, the presence of Asaduddin Owaisi as a Trojan horse of sorts in what the TMC thinks is its vote bank so far?
As far as concerned, it doesn't matter which political party or which political aspirant or Mr. Owaisi or anyone else wants to come and try their luck in getting votes in West Bengal on what agenda. Our agenda is development, and we believe Bengal deserves better than what they have. There is neither Ma, nor Marti, nor Manush in the governance that was promised to the people of West Bengal. And certainly, when we talk about development, we talk about Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. It's not a divisive agenda. We believe every Indian deserves to have a better quality of life.
Tausif, is that the big concern for the Trinamool? That if the Owaisi party starts chipping away on the minority vote bank, which you take at this moment as your starting point, then the election of 2021 could look very different in all elections.
No, it begs me to ask this question from Mr. Nalin Kohli. BJP guys, they keep repeating Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. How many ministers do we have in Bihar cabinet now? There is not a single MP in parliament, we know. But they recently won Bihar government. They have recently formed Bihar government. How many Muslim minister do we have there? No, we don't have any. So all this hypocrisy will be seen through by the people of Bengal, and they will be, and I'm not only talking about Muslim votes, it's a considerable number of Bengali Manush vote. They are opposed to BJP's entry because they practice politics of communal politics and politics of violence, which is fundamentally.
Out of time, Nalin, you have your hand up, but I'm completely out of time, so I'll give you only 20 seconds.
40% of the people of Bengali Manush voted for the BJP in the Lok Sabha. So you are entitled to live with your head in the sand. We don't.
I'll leave it
and
there.
Those were CPM and Congress vote shares which shifted to BJP.
We'll find out. We have enough time. Tausif, Nalin, over the next 5 months, there's more than enough time to talk about West Bengal and what's happening there. Thank you, Shikha. Thank you, Rajat, for joining us with your insights. This is where I wrap up part 1. But I'm wrapping up part 1 early because there is a special report I'd like you to consider staying back for. Because when we come back from a quick break, I will show you the plight of poor students who used to go to school, and one of the attractions for them was that they got